Welcome everyone to our first chapter on Introduction to Human Communication. I'm Instructor Paige and I'm excited to have you all. Now, what have you gotten yourself into with this class? Well, hopefully in this session we're going to explore what communication really is, why it's important for you to take this class, and how we can become more effective communicators. The goal today is by the end you should be able to define what interpersonal communication is, explain why we communicate, and understand what it means to be a competent communicator. First, we're going to look at the definition of interpersonal communication. If you go to our textbook, they're going to describe interpersonal communication as involving at least two people who are intentionally, that's a key word there, orienting toward each other. It means it's purposeful as they're trying to communicate. They see each other as both the subject and as the object. In other words, it means it's more than just exchanging words. It's about recognizing and responding to each other's perspectives. Later, you're going to learn that this means communication must be intentional. Now, later in the course, we'll learn that this communication between two people is very crucial. If it's more than two, that's something called small group communication. If it's more than 5, that's something called public speaking, but we're going to learn more about that as we move along. Now, interpersonal communication, there are 4 areas of this. It is broken down into the number of people involved, which you've learned has to be the number 2. It needs to have 2 people. It's how physically close they are. Now this part's kind of tricky because yes, this is an area, but with technology, do you need to be physically next to someone to communicate? Not really. So basically this is boiled down to we need to be close enough that we can communicate, such as waving to someone down the hall, such as if you have a camera on that you can actually see each other, so you're seeing the interaction. The third is the nature of the interaction, and the fourth is the degree of formality. For example, to help break that down, think about how you may talk differently to your doctor compared to your best friend. Your structure, the tone, even the choice of words you use depends on that situation. Now, why do we talk to others? Ultimately, we talk to others to try to understand them and predict how they'll behave or respond. Communication helps us navigate relationships, workplaces, and even casual interactions. Now, a quick reflection. Think about a recent conversation you've had. How did the context influence the way you spoke? Experts in the medical field studied and found that being a better communicator helps with stress, anxiety, and even the common cold. Now, why do you think that is? Now, why should we actually study interpersonal communication? Well, believe it or not, most of our time, almost 70 to 80% of our time, is spent communicating with others. The better we do it, the more effective we become in our relationships, our schools, even our careers. Research even shows that good communication skills reduces stress, anxiety, it impacts our health, even lowers things like depression and heart problems. So communication isn't just about the words we're using, it's about the well-being. Now, communication is also symbolic. This means words, gestures, and signs don't have meaning on their own. We, as people, assign meaning to them. Think about a peace sign, or even the word dog. The word isn't the actual animal. It's a symbol that we all agree represents it. This is why misunderstandings happen, because meanings are in people, not in the words themselves. For instance, think about slang. What does your generation use for something cool? Now that can vary depending on the meaning we give it. But here's other things. If you see on the screen, you look at these emojis. What do each of these mean? If you were to communicate with the teeth smiling, the eyes big, what does it say? Believe it or not, if you do research, each generation perceives each picture differently. So that's kind of a key in interpersonal communication, is knowing the perception of someone else. Now, another key point is communication always happens in context. The setting, environment, or culture we're in shapes how we interpret those messages. Culture especially influences what we believe, what we value, and how we act. For example, what's considered polite in one culture might be seen as rude in another. Can you think of a cultural example that shaped the way you communicate? Now, here's something to also consider, is that we cannot not communicate. As a true or false question, this is true. We can't help it. We're always communicating. That means your face is communicating, your body language, your words you're using is communicating without even thinking about it. This is why communication is intentional. An individual purposely intends to interact with another person, attempting to establish a shared meaning. That's your key there, is you want that shared meaning. This makes for effective communication. So if we're always communicating, whether we tend to or not, what should we look out for? We need to look out for nonverbal communication, such as your body language. You could be saying things like you're excited, but if your arms are crossed and your facials are saying something completely different, how will it be perceived by someone else? And this goes that our communication is based on a series of interactions. By talking to someone, you're going to start to get to know them. They'll start to get to know you. And those interactions lead to how we communicate with someone. So does culture influence our communication? Absolutely. Culture is part of our learning process. As soon as you are born, you're starting to learn about communication. It leads to your perception of the world, which influences your beliefs, like we mentioned, your values, your norms, and your rules. That's a lot of information, but I promise later in chapter 6, we're going to learn a lot more about our culture and how it impacts our behaviors. Another one is communication occurs in a context. That means we perceive its meaning based on the circumstance, the environment, the setting, the situation. If you're talking with a friend in class, will you talk with them a little bit differently outside of class? So you can see that contextual examples do matter in communication. Now, do we need to be competent communicators? Being competent means you are doing things that are acceptable and you're doing things that are effective. It gets you the outcome you're wanting, which means once you talk with someone, are they understanding it in the way you are intending? To help be a confident communicator, you need to recognize situational cues. Adapt your message based on environment and audience needs. Persuade the audience to become involved. Emphasize with the audience and adjust your message. You'll also self-monitor your verbal and nonverbal communication. All of these things to become a competent communicator is what we will be focusing on in this class. Each of the chapters will focus on a few of these things to help us become that competent communicator. So as we dive into cultures, think about how will that impact your communication with someone from another culture? How does it impact them speaking with you? Now, as we mentioned, there are a few different types of communication. Intrapersonal, that purple at the very top. Now that's communication within yourself. Maybe as you're listening to this lecture, you have your own commentary going. You're thinking thoughts. So this would be in your mind. Now if you talk to someone else, there's just two of you, that's interpersonal communication, which is a lot of fun because we get very personal in this class. Now if you go more than two, so about 3 to 5, that is something called small group communication. More than 5 is public communication, so public speaking. And the last one, if you communicate through technology, that would be something called mediated communication. So let's test this out. If you're thinking about this class, that's intrapersonal. You share those thoughts with a partner, that's interpersonal. With a small group, that's small group communication. You decide you want to stand up and share this with the world, that's public speaking. And then if you text a friend about this class, that's called mediated communication. But notice the way we share messages will change based on the type of communication we are giving. One last big theme is being mindful. How can we be mindful? Mindful communication means being fully present, intentional, and aware of how we are interacting. It's not always easy. Oftentimes we go on autopilot. But when we pay attention to why we're saying what we're saying and how it can affect others, our communication becomes more effective. Later, we're going to learn some mindfulness strategies together. The thing that you really want to consider is that circle there. The first is attention. You need to be fully present in the moment. That means putting away your phone, giving your full attention to that person you're talking to. You need intention, knowing why you're communicating the way you are. And attitude, how you pay attention. Are you communicating that you want to listen? Are you communicating that you are being receptive of what you are hearing? So those are a few things to consider. As we move through the course, we'll learn a lot more about mindfulness and then how we pay attention. So to wrap it up, remember, communication is constant. It's symbolic. It happens in context, and it can always be improved with competence and mindfulness. For your assignment, I'd like you to track your communication until the next class period, writing down the ways you interact. That's with face-to-face communication. That's with texting, social media, through video games, listening to someone, or even just reflecting to yourself. That's communication. So this will help you become more aware of how much and in what ways you communicate every day.